Hello and welcome to the Dreaming and Doing podcast with me, Nicky Raby. I'm an actor, coach, writer, speaker, podcaster and a mum. And in my coaching work, I work with creatives, personal brands, freelancers and small businesses. In my podcast, I talk about success, but not in a traditional sense. I have conversations with those who have built a business from something they love or who have made a pivot in their career. Also those who have built a brand or a job that maybe didn't exist when they were at school, and they found a way to monetize their skills, talents and expertise. I've spoken to loads of incredible people, coaches, designers, journalists, app creators, magazine editors, bloggers, content creators, authors, and all-round movers and shakers. I ask the questions that you want to know the answer to. So how they started, about money, saying no, saying yes, pitching, presenting, putting yourself out there even though it terrifies you, standing out in a busy online world, growing, scaling and making your work for you and your circumstances. The show notes are always at nickyraby.com/podcast and the conversation continues across social media, often on Instagram, my favourite platform, at Nicky Raby. Thanks so much for listening. It's great to have you with us. In today's episode, I'm talking to Adrienne of Adrienne London, who is a content creator, personal trainer, a runner, a mum, and she has been somebody on the internet who's been helping me to put on my trainers and get out and about and get moving again. It took me a long time after having my son to kind of feel like I was up for doing all the exercise and getting back into it. It was hard enough going out without sleep. But today I want to talk about her journey, how she came to this place of being able to wear these many hats and hear what she has to say on lots of topics about health and fitness, getting stuff done and not waiting for the perfect time. As always, please come over to Instagram at Nicky Raby, or you can find the show notes over on the podcast page, nickyraby.com. We are getting so close to our 1 million play benchmark that we would love to get to by the end of the year. So if you are loving the podcast, please share or rate or review and subscribe to your friends, because I know there's many of you freelancers sitting at home by yourself for hours on end that I know would benefit from this. So please share it. I would really appreciate it. Anyway, I'm sure you want to go for a run or get moving or have a kitchen rave after this episode, because I certainly did. Here it is. Hello, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. I love some Northern Bones on this podcast sometimes. All those lovely vowels. Can we just start with, like, how would you describe what you do? What's your job title?
Oh gosh, honestly, it depends what day I guess you get me on. I think, like so many people now, I wear lots of hats, but essentially I am a qualified fitness trainer. I'm a runner. I use social media and write a blog and YouTube and all the rest to kind of share my message, which essentially is to encourage and empower women to be more active, to go after their goals, to live their life to the full and whatever that is for them. So for some people that might be, they want to run a marathon, and other people it might be that they just want to, maybe retrain to do, become a yoga teacher, or maybe write a book. Or I'm just that person who's telling you, yes, you should go for it. You should start, and you should start now.
Yes, and starting now is the thing, because I think sometimes we can, and I guess this is why I'm really attracted to your message, is that sometimes we can give ourselves all these excuses of like, well, when my kid goes to school, or when I'm 40, or when I'm whatever, and we can just put a different date on it or a different excuse, whatever we choose, whenever we like, and actually starting now can be the key. How did it start for you, your sort of fitness journey? Have you always been sporty? Have you always, or are you going to say, like, I was 25 stone back in the day?
Well, it is actually quite a long story, but I'm going to give you the brief version. Otherwise it'll take the whole episode. But I've always been active, so I've always been, into sports, into team sports at school. I did all the clubs, I did netball, I did running, and not distance running, but I did sprinting. And then I found dancing, and I threw myself into that, and I loved that because I love music. So I begged my mum to let me go to dance lessons, and my mum was a single mum, 4 children, so it was kind of like quite a struggle really. But so she managed to put me through the dance lessons, and then eventually I went to a dance college, a performing arts school.
And none of that is cheap, by the way, is it? I mean, I went to drama school, and it's like, this is your equipment list, and you think, well, I think my mum's just going to be living on jam sandwiches whilst I'm wearing these shoes.
Yeah, literally, the list goes on and on. You're totally right. But then, I went to dance school, graduated, and went into doing musicals, theatre. So I performed in musicals in the West End. And that was when I was, how old was I then? 21. So I was in the West End when I was 21. And then I met my husband, got pregnant with my son. So to be honest, it was a really amazing time because I was just doing a job that I loved. I was newlywed, I was newly pregnant, I was very happy. But life is quite unpredictable. And unfortunately, my husband became very unwell and he had a spontaneous brain hemorrhage. So that led him to then having seizures and developing epilepsy. So it was, well, as you can imagine, incredibly difficult time. It was life-changing. That whole year for us was, my husband's a PE teacher at a secondary school, and he wasn't able to return to work for 6 months. He was at home recovering, and during that time, my belly was getting bigger and Jude was on his way. So then after Jude was born, it was a complete career shift for me. So I was like, I can't go back to the show because obviously my husband was having epilepsy at the time. It wasn't controlled. And so he wasn't able to look after baby on his own. So I kind of left the show and thought, right, well, I've always been active. I wanted something else to do. It's kind of during that time that I started running myself because I really wanted just some headspace. I was obviously, there's so much. It felt so much like responsibility and stress, to be honest. So I started running.
Sometimes those things like pop up, don't they? Where you're just like, blimey, did that actually happen? There's so many different layers to it, like the immediate shock of it and then kind of digesting it going forward.
Yeah, exactly. And in the months to follow, I was becoming really just anxious all the time because we weren't sure, at the time his seizures weren't controlled and I was never sure when he was going to have another one. So just living with that anxiety, I'd never experienced anxiety before, ever. So, I started running myself. And then it was actually my sister who said, because I wanted to work. And my sister said, you're always motivating other people to kind of get the gym kit on. Or she was like, you should, look into training other people. And also I was meeting lots of mums at the time because Jude was, at that point, he was maybe 6 months old. And I was meeting lots of other mums at playgroup and baby swimming. And they were like, oh, how did you get back in shape after having a baby so quickly? So it kind of seemed like a good thing to do. So I trained then and did level 2 and level 3 personal training. And essentially the first fitness thing that I did, I set up a boot camp in my local area for mummies. It was it wasn't just postnatal, but it was women's only. And I went around, I printed off this is back in the day, I printed off 1,000 flyers. I went around with Jude in his pushchair, this is 7 years ago, and put the flyers through front doors, and my mother-in-law came and helped me. Brilliant. And then after that 1,000 flyers, I got 20 women that signed up to this boot camp. And that's it. That's how I started. I started my blog, I think, the same month. And then that was it. I was like, right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to help encourage other women to get active.
This is so good. And I love the fact that you talk about it from such a positive place in terms of feeling active, energized, from a health perspective, rather than back in the day when we used to do PE at school. I mean, our PE teacher used to put on a Beverly Callard fitness video. I think she just wanted to have a fag, sitting down somewhere. But it was all about how many calories you're burning. It wasn't that sort of sense of feeling strong and feeling like you can actually chase your kid when they're bezzing around the park and you're thinking, oh, blimey, I actually need to catch up with them.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is definitely about reframing that mindset. And I think, that is still a huge part of it. I think for women globally, we're told that, it's better to look a certain way and that, there's so much shame around, being overweight or, foods and, good foods and bad foods. And that kind of narrative still exists. It's not, I think it's slightly getting better, but it's still there. It's ingrained into women to think that, they should be trying to burn calories. They should be trying to lose weight because apparently that is what we should all aspire to. So I think, when it comes to fitness, I think there is still a lot of that there where people are like, oh, I've been for this run. Now I can eat this cake. And I think it's what I try to do is really, as you said, encourage people to say, okay, let's get out and do something and be active, whether it's with your children, whether it's, Jude's very active, my son. So whether it's taking him swimming, whether it's going on bike rides together, or if it's something for yourself, maybe you want to, I don't know, master this really difficult yoga pose, or maybe you want to start lifting weights and improve your strength, or run and sign up for a charity race. And it's that sense of achievement. I think when people have a goal, so they're like, okay, I couldn't run for 5 minutes, but now I'm training for this 5K or whatever.
Yeah.
I think giving people a goal and making them realize when they start to see improvements, they start to get fitter, they start to get faster. They're like, hang on, I can do this. And that sense of achievement, I think, overrides the whole counting calories. Have I lost, a couple of pounds? And I think it's just much more fun and more motivating. Standing on scales every week is not fun or motivating. I don't know any woman that enjoys that.
Like, so I can't wait to stand on those scales again. Please let me.
Yeah, and that's what I tried to say when I first started working with clients one-to-one, is they would always be like, this is my weight loss goal. How many weeks is it going to take? And I was just always had to kind of gently be like, okay, well, let's set some other goals as well. And, obviously as a byproduct, if you're going to start being more active, you probably will lose weight. But I think just having that as an initial goal is really, it's so sad, actually.
Yeah, I've realised, like, when I got back into running, like the first time, like I did my first sort of proper run back in March, and then I didn't sort of do another one till July, which is kind of shameful, but, we're all friends here. But I really realised that I needed a plan to follow. I'm not very good when I'm wandering off, and I kind of feel like I'm that in my business as well. I like a structure, I like a to-do list, I like to know what's happening next, and sort of using those things that work for me in other areas of my life have been really useful.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And I think, whether you've got kids or not, but I think especially for women who have children, you end up putting all of your own needs last. And, I think if you have a structure of exercise or running, and you're like, okay, every Wednesday morning, this is, because I write it down. So it's written down on my calendar, it's written in my diary. It'll say my power hour is what I call it, and it will say, for example, 5:45 power hour. It will say this day I'm doing 45 minutes of mobility and stretching, and this day I'm doing a 10k run. And because it's written down there, not only do I know it's there, so I'm obviously it's not a shock then, or the night before I'm kind of thinking, okay, I'm going to go to bed early because I've got my 10k in the morning or whatever, but also other people know it's there, so it's in the calendar, it's on the diary. It's not an optional thing, like, oh, maybe if I've got time, I'll do this little bit of, no, it's like, it's in there just like a meeting or just like anything else, just like Jude's swimming lesson. You're not just going to miss it. So I'm not going to miss my run. I think having a plan is really key to kind of keeping yourself accountable and actually making it part of your week.
I completely agree. And I think also as well, it can be, like you say, it can be something that's at the bottom of the pile, or it's something that is not absolutely crucial, so it could be moved. But one thing I've realised is it is actually crucial. I do need to take care of my health, because if I don't, I'm a bit hopeless to everybody else in my life, not to mention a little bit miserable.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the thing. Often people say to me, oh, but I'm busy and I'm tired, and oh, is this going to be another thing on my to-do list? But as you said, I think once you realize like how it can give you more energy, it gives you more, I don't know, just get up and go. Like, I feel like once you start to go, you know what, I can do this and I can do that, it gives you more confidence. So I definitely think it shouldn't be a chore. If it's a chore, then I'd say you're doing the wrong kind of activity. So for example, if you're doing run and you hate it every minute, then don't run, do something else, yes. Go to, I don't know, Zumba, go swimming, like go to box fit. Like, there's so many ways now to be active. You don't have to do something that you don't enjoy.
Yeah. I mean, I guess one thing I love about following you on social media is that you've just got such a clear, distinctive voice in the way that you come across as such a champion of women. And I was going to say, how have you found your voice of really figuring out like what to share and which parts of your personality, just so you kind of stand out? Because I guess with all of these things, wellness has had a real boost. Like when I was I'm speaking at Stylist Live in November, and the lady who I was talking to, she was like, we've got loads of wellness kind of options to choose from at the moment. And I thought, gosh, yes, it has got that craze. So how do you manage to stand out and find your tribe and kind of be who you're supposed to be?
Well, I think the key is, I know people use this word so much, like I'm not even going to say, well, I have to now, but people say, be authentic. And it's like, what does that even mean? I think essentially what it means is just being really honest, and not just with other people, but with yourself. So, for example, I'm not into yoga, I'm not a yogi, I'm not into kind of meditation or whatever. That is a trend right now. People love it. People want to talk about, meditation workshops and yoga, and it's just a thing. So I could be like, okay, cool, I'll just do this yoga thing, but it's not me. I don't, for me, running is my meditation, and I'm Christian. So for me, like, prayer is my thing. I don't, so it's like, just be honest with yourself. If you are in a yoga class thinking this is so boring, then don't be like, okay, I'm going to do yoga, And I think, so that's one way. But I think in terms of finding my voice on social media, I think there's kind of been two parts to it. So one is, I guess, that sense of urgency. As I said, what happened to my husband definitely played a role in just changing me and who I am as a person. And I think not everybody is going to go through that. Not everyone's going to say, oh, one day I had this awakening moment, or 1 year. And I think, which I'm glad, not everyone goes through adversity. However, when you do, I think, and I was so young. I was 23 then that happened. And so I think at a very young age, I definitely had this sense of urgency that was like, you know what? If I want to do something, I should probably do it now, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. Not in a morbid way, but, my husband was 29 years old. He was super healthy. He was actually training for the London Marathon at the time. Wow. And, it's just that just happened to him. It could happen to me. It could happen to you. It could happen to anyone. So I just thought, okay, if I want to do something, as you said before, I don't want to wait till my kid's older. I don't want to wait till I've got more money. I don't want to wait. I just want to do everything that I can. And so I wanted to share that and say to people, look, come on, if I can do this, you can do it. And then I think with the finding your voice, I think once you figure out, okay, this is who I am and this is what I stand for, you just have to stick with it, because not everyone's going to like what you have to say. There's always going to be some people who, I guess with me, might be like, oh, it's too much, this Mrs. Positive Pants. It's
I
don't want to see you Mrs. Positive all the time. And like, often I know people will say on social media, like, you can't have an opinion because people are always going to, I don't know, if you say that you're vegetarian, then people are going to, I think you just have to be bold enough and brave enough to go, you know what, this is who I am. This is my message. This is my intention. I believe this to be, true, and I'm going to just stick with it and stay. I think that's the thing, longevity, just not changing with the wind. I've seen people who, they've changed every 6 months. They're kind of, whatever the trend is, they're kind of talking about it. They've got an opinion on, everything. And it's not to say, they don't care about those things truly, but it just feels a bit like, oh, come on, everyone's talking about that,
Yeah, and I think that sense of being bold and showing up might not be for somebody in that moment, but if you consistently show up, people come back to you. Even years later, then maybe they're not ready to hear your message. And, I'm fortunate that I haven't had sort of many trolly messages, but sometimes people are like, oh, you're so annoying that you're doing well, or, something. And actually, sometimes that can be a reflection of that person, that actually it's more about them and it's not necessarily about you.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think it's difficult, putting yourself out there on social media. You do have to have a certain personality, I think, to do that. And regardless of whether you get, like you said, trolly messages or not, I don't think many people do really, but unless you've got, I don't know, a million followers. But I think what you're saying is right. I do think regardless of trolls, not trolls, I don't really think that many people will get them. I don't know. I've been lucky, I haven't either. But I think when you're looking at people, and as you said, what their message is, if it's not for you at that time, I personally had that experience in my life. Like, my son's 7 years old and I wanted to have another baby for years, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, it hasn't happened yet. And I was following a lady who I love and adore, and at the time she was pregnant with twins, and she was kind of, just being honest and saying, oh, I'm really fed up, and oh, my feet hurt and this and that. And I was just so envious and so like, oh, I just want to be pregnant so much that I just thought, I don't want to see this. So I kind of, unfollowed for a while and was just like, you know what, it's not a personal attack on her. She isn't doing anything wrong. She's just living her life. But for me at that time, I was like, I need to it's like self-preservation. I don't need to every day be reminded that she's buying a baby stroller and that she's buying this and that, because for me, it was difficult. So then I think maybe like a year later, I probably I follow her now. So I refollowed and was just like, oh, the kids are so cute and it's fine. But it was nothing to do with her. She hadn't done anything wrong. It was all about me. So I would definitely say that if you feel like your message doesn't resonate, or, perhaps just don't take it too personally. Some people will take it, some people will leave it. It's fine.
Yeah, you're right. How have you, as you've expanded, because now you work with brands and you're an ambassador, how have you sort of transformed into this sort of personal brand, and sort of what's helped you to kind of progress? Because I guess what we're now entering into is a new landscape where we don't really know the rules. We're kind of texting other people, go, what happened? Did you do that? Or what's going on? Or, you know, I found that when I trained as an actor, that when I first sort of graduated, I was just like, I don't know how to handle that situation, or do I negotiate, or what should I be expecting? What's helped you to move into that new zone?
Okay, so firstly, what has helped me the most is definitely having my network of, friends, like-minded women, people in the, doing a similar thing. So Hayley Warnes, who I know you had as a guest, and we actually co-founded a women's collective called Get to Know, and that's all about, women coming together in the creative industries. And essentially, I think if I hadn't have had somebody like Hayley or other friends who, you could kind of say, as you said, text them late at night or send them an email saying, do you know anyone in this place? Can you introduce me via email? I think just being really honest with people and saying, this is what I'm trying to do. I want to take it to the next level, or maybe I've had this great opportunity, and we all have that kind of moment of self-doubt. It's like, can I do this? Yeah. And just being really honest and having those people around you is so important. And I think for anyone who's listening who thinks, well, I don't have anyone, to ask or whatever, you'd be surprised who's in your contacts. You'd be surprised. So it might not be your best friend, it might not be your sister, but think about your wider, network. Think about every single person that you are friends with on Facebook, everybody that you follow on Instagram, people who you have direct message conversations with. Don't be afraid to ask people, just be honest, and don't be afraid to ask, say, what, do you have 5 minutes? Would you be able to give me some advice about this? I'd love to get your opinion. And you'll be surprised. People want to help. People want to say, yeah, of course. And I think just being honest, asking, and then being willing to do the same for other people. So I know that sometimes I'm like, okay, this person might be something useful that I can do for them, and just saying to them, look, if there's anything that you want to know, or if I can ever help you with anything, just don't be afraid to, hit me up, sure. And people often like, oh, really? I'm like, sure, whatever, just ask me. Because we're all in the same boat, we're all doing the same thing, whether it's, in the blogging sphere or whether it's building a personal brand. As you said, I think everybody these days, if you have a social media account, if you are self-employed, whatever, you have a personal brand, whether you call it that or not. I do believe you have one, because it's just your reputation. It's just what people think, what comes to mind when they think of your name.
Yeah, and I always want to be that person who's like, what can I do? How can I help? I never, if I've got the information, I want to share it rather than hold my cards close to my chest, because I always sort of believe in that spherical thing of it always comes back around.
Yeah, for sure. Like, exactly. When is helping someone else ever gonna be a bad thing? I don't think that it is. And I think, I think lately, the last maybe 3-5 years, I think the narrative is changing as well around women. And I think before it was kind of women were taught to compete with one another. There's only one spot for the woman, and you've got to kind of knock her off the spot to be up there. And actually, I think now it's more of this, women standing together and being like, we can all thrive, we can all help one another, we can collaborate, we can do great things together. So I think it's a good time.
And also as well, if you see somebody online who's doing something, it's like a little sign like, oh, well, then maybe I could do that, sort of, rather using it for inspiration rather than like, oh, that's not fair, why she got that?
Yeah, exactly. Using it for inspiration. That's so right. I think I've heard people before who, I think it's a mindset. You're either positive or you're negative. And I know that that's quite black and white, but I think if you're drawn towards being more of a positive person and more of an optimist, you would look at somebody else's success and go, wow, that's amazing. That kind of shows me that it's possible for me. That's, just an amazing achievement. Good for her. She must have worked really hard. Whereas I think when people are more pessimistic and more drawn to being kind of just downer, it's easy for them to go, oh, she's so lucky she did that and I'm so jealous, or, oh, she always gets to do everything, this person, I think it's definitely a mindset, and people don't always want to own that and accept it. But I think if you can, then it's like really powerful to go, actually, why am I looking at her and going, oh, she doesn't deserve that. It's like, think about why you're feeling like that, and just take ownership on that and try and spin it around and try and be a cheerleader for other women, because they will definitely support you in return.
Yeah, for sure. How do you have that? How do you work your schedule for a week? Because I guess wearing lots of different hats, your every day is different, presumably. So what sort of helps you keep organised, or not in that sense of overwhelm and like just wanting to lie on the floor and cry or have a sleep? You know, what sort of keeps you being able to serve in the way that you do?
Well, it's definitely a balancing act. I'm not going to say that like, oh, I've got it, nailed. I don't think anybody has.
I thought you
were. I don't think anybody has. If they tell you they have, I'm like,
they're lying.
They're lying. Yeah. So, but I think things that have definitely helped is, one, being my power hour. So I mentioned it before. I get up 5:45 pretty much every day. I get up before my son wakes up, and I get stuff done. That hour is so valuable to me because there's no WhatsApps coming in, there's no emails coming in, there's no one asking me for anything. So if I'm training, I can train. If I'm doing emails, if I'm writing, if I'm cooking, like honestly, I've cooked before at that time, so that after school and after, athletics club and after everything's ready, so I don't have to try and cook at 7:00. So yeah, 5:45 power hour. I honestly, if you are listening and thinking, no way, she's crazy, please just try it, because honestly, people have strong opinions of the early mornings before they've ever tried it. So trying to get up early has been a good one for me. Also, being able to be reactive and go with the flow and accept change. I'm somebody, I think maybe because I'm a mum, I guess you sometimes just have to be. I'm happy to think for things to change. So if I have something in my diary and it has to change, that's fine. Don't make a song and dance about it and, oh, this was this day and now it's not happening, it's got to be moved. Just go with it, because the time wasted on stressing about it isn't going to change. So I'm just like, okay, cool, move it to another day. Or, if my son was ill off school and I can't make a meeting, I'd just say, I'm really sorry, I can't attend. Can we do it over the phone? There's always a way. And I think, I try to just be reactive and just go with the flow. I'm not really somebody who gets flustered and stressed if things are last minute. I'm quite happy to be like, okay, tell me where I've got to be and I'll just get on with it.
Yeah. And sometimes really good things happen anyway, like, oh, well, this has now made space for this.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not to say that, I, of course, have a diary. I have my digital calendar with Gmail, and other people can see that as well, so they can access that. Like my agent, for example, can access that and see, okay, where I am if she can't get hold of me. Also, I have my paper diary, and I love that because if I write down, like Sunday nights, I tend to go through the week ahead, and I think looking at something on paper is so different to seeing it digitally, and I can kind of just draw it. I can write it in a way that makes me see how much space it takes up as well. So if the whole week is covered with notes and dates and times and stuff, then I know it's going to be a hell of a week. Whereas I feel like what I've tried to do now is have white space in that calendar. So I'm like, okay, Thursday afternoon is looking pretty empty, and I'm going to keep it that way, because I don't think you can go back to back all the time. You need white space in your life.
Yeah, and that's when the really good ideas come as well. That's when you get the little nuggets. I guess that's what running's done for me as well, is going, gosh, actually, to run a business, to remain creative, to do all the things, to show up as a partner and as a mother, then I need that headspace. I'm not just a machine that can keep going.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. You can keep going for so long, but I think what I've done, especially this year, I think this year's been just crazy busy for me. And obviously when you're self-employed, when you're starting your own thing, you want to say yes to all these opportunities. Like I've this year said yes to way too many things, and then you've got all these plates and you're like, okay, so I'm doing this talk tomorrow and I want to go over my notes for that. Oh, but I've got to do this tonight and I've got to do this in the morning, and I'm getting up at 5 and getting on the train. And honestly, there have been weeks when I've got to the end and just about survived and gone, oh my goodness, like what was I thinking saying yes to 17 things this week? Like it's crazy. And then I'll go, okay, Adrienne, you need to scale it back. You need to learn to say no. And then 2 weeks later, I'll do it again. So I think you're right about knowing your limit and having to take stock and be like, I do need to be, like, as you said, a wife, a mother, a sister, whatever, a friend. And you need time for yourself. You just can't, you'll burn out. I think I've been fortunate. I haven't actually burnt out, but I think I got to, it's been a few days where I've just been like, oh my goodness, like, so if I drop one of these things, it's like the end of the world.
Yeah, but, and it's when your kind of breath gets a bit short and your voice is getting a bit higher, and it's almost like burnout is coming around the corner and you're doing that staring match with it. Like, are you going to take me down or am I going to take you down?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not a way I want to live my life. I think, I definitely was like, okay, this year's been a learning curve. I am trying to kind of be more selective, I guess, about the things I take on, because, when you take things on, I commit 100%. So, yeah, I think you've got to, I think it's a constant thing. And actually, there's this great guy that I heard speak recently called Brendan Burchard.
Oh,
I heard him being interviewed. Yeah, and he's the author of habits of highly effective, highly successful, effective people, or something like that. And he basically was talking about the fact that people who are highly effective and successful, they constantly reevaluate. So they don't just go, okay, January, what are my goals for the year? What are my resolutions? And then they'll wait till next January to do it all again. He's like, they're constantly assessing at the end of every week, at the end of every month, yes. Constantly looking at like, what went well? What can I do better? In that, from a business perspective, but also your life. I feel like you can do that for yourself and go, okay, what went well? What was awful this week? And how can I avoid that again?
Yeah, I've started doing these things where I see periods of times as like seasons. So like a Netflix series almost. So like between now and Christmas, it's like, what is the season? What's the emotional stuff that's going on around? What are the circumstances? And I know that my partner's going away on tour for a little while, so it's like, okay, we need a bit of downtime here, and it's just helped me to focus, because then if I go from that place, it helps me to make decisions about, okay, this is the help that I need, this is where I need to spend money, this is when I need to get really organised, and this is when I can have a bit more wiggle room, and just sort of breaking it down, because the 5-year plan just really doesn't work for me. I'm just sort of like left floored by that.
Right. Yeah. I think I like to have both. I like to have like 5-year plan. I like to have my 1-year goal. I like to have my 1-week goal. I like to see like what I'm working towards. And I think that seasons thing is great. I think I kind of thinking that way as well. And I think it's really useful if you're in a difficult period of time where you can go, this is so hard. I'm working really hard. I've got all these deadlines. I've got all these things to do, but this is a season. And so, at the end of this, I'm going to have some downtime, or I'm going to schedule a week off or whatever. Yeah. But I think, I like that. Sounds like we all need to kind of have an end of season holiday
finale, where everybody just sits around and eats pizzas and celebrates. I was going to just ask you how you deal with those moments where things don't go to plan, or maybe you get scared about stuff, or if you ever deal with self-doubt or limiting beliefs, or if you're just sort of a bit tired and overworked, how you keep sort of popping back up.
Yeah, for sure. I think we all do. Again, it's the same thing. I think we all have limiting beliefs, and I think we all have self-doubt sometimes. I think what I've become good at is kind of recognizing what those are, and then saying to myself, okay, well, when have you felt like this before, and what did you do about it? So, for example, I always like to encourage people to look at their achievements. And I think often women don't necessarily like to do it because they think it's boastful, or they think that it's kind of, I don't know, like giving yourself this big ego boost, which I don't think it is. I see it more as a little pat on the back that says, you know what, you found this thing really overwhelming. You broke it down, you got it, you achieved it. So you did it. No one did it for you. No one did those early mornings for you. No one ran that race for you. You did it, you. And then I'm like, so if you did that, then come on, you can probably do this as well.
Yes.
And again, same thing, asking for help. I always say, I'm like, okay, if I'm feeling that stressed about it, it's like, speak to someone, get another perspective, speak to somebody who is going to be honest with you and get another perspective and say, have I bitten off too much here, or is this something that, I can do? And I think when things don't go to plan, I am the eternal optimist. I'm always that person that's just like, it's
looking
fine.
for the lesson.
Yeah, I'm like, not even that, because I don't even spend time like looking. I guess I do, but I just feel like if it didn't go to plan, it's fine. I'm like, get over it. You're a big girl. Move on. Like, next thing. Because honestly, like this whole sense of urgency thing, I just feel like any time spent looking back and wallowing and feeling, this didn't work out, or, I really had my hopes set on that and I didn't get it. Like, we've all been there, Yeah, totally. But I'm just like, allow yourself that for like 5 minutes, like not like a week. You can't be having a week to go, I don't know, went for this audition and I didn't get it, or I don't know, didn't get this job, whatever. It's like, okay, well, that wasn't for you. So what are you going to do? Because the longer you spend like wallowing, it's just going to bring your self-confidence down. Therefore, other people are going to pick up on that. And then, you know what I mean? Like, you want people to believe in you. So if you're not even believing in you, they're not going to. So
and
I just think
the flow in other areas of your life as well. Like the times when in my 20s I was waiting for some boy to phone, then I'm sure that I wasn't like focusing on my career in the way that I should have been. It's sort of everything gets a bit murky if you're in that headspace.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that it can be difficult, and it's like it's why people say it's a spiral, right? Because as soon as one thing goes wrong, you feel a bit bad about that. Then you're less likely to go, oh, okay, I don't really want to get my gym kit on today. And I don't really want to go to that event and network. And you feel like you haven't got anything to offer. And then it just continues. So I do think it's about kind of stopping it and going, okay, enough of that. Like that happened yesterday. Today's a new day. What are we going to do about it? Because essentially no one's going to do it for you. Like, no, I think that's something I've learned probably the hard way in my life. It's like, if you want something, no one is going to come and knock on your door and go, hey, here's that thing you really want to do. It's like, what are you going to do to make it happen? Take responsibility, be accountable for your own life, because you only have it. Like, no one else is watching you that closely. You might think it's a big, magnascopic thing, I don't know if that's a word, that people are looking at, and they're going to see it, and it's this huge failure. And actually, no one else even noticed. The world is so busy and so quick that in the moment that you've had this little failure, people are already looking at the next thing. So
totally. And I think sometimes all that thing of like, as an actor, it was always that being like plucked from obscurity, some guy coming over to, and it's always a guy in the films, isn't it? Like coming over and being like, hey, sweetheart, you're a star. And it's like, no, it's always all that. Any success comes from hard work and consistency and all that good stuff. And that's so funny, like when I do runs, if I'm in that headspace of like, I don't want to go, I'm so tired, there's other things I could be doing, I make sure that I go on a route like past where that, like the hill that I walked up to try and like get my labor moving, or like where my labor started, or where my pregnancy yoga class was, because I'm like, come on now, like I've carried a baby that's nearly 10 pounds, I can move my feet for another 8 minutes, it's all good.
Yes, I love that. Exactly. It's like you can do it. And I think it's essentially, like you said, changing your mindset, because we all have those days when you don't feel like doing it. And so often I think because I do a lot of speaking, I do public speaking, and often it's called, motivational talks or whatever. I think the word motivation itself is quite, misleading. I think I often say to people that I reframe it as being, forget motivation, because motivation isn't going to be there when you need it. Motivation just comes and goes. And if you're always waiting to feel motivated, you're probably not going to do it for a long time. So exactly. I think instead I just go, okay, some days I'll be motivated, and on the days when I'm not, I'll be disciplined.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I want to kind of move on the spot and like do some burpees or something. No, maybe not. I've got one final question. Where would you like to be in 5 years' time?
Gosh. Okay. So where would I like to be in 5 years? I would like to be sharing my message on a bigger stage, on a bigger platform, whether that's public speaking, whether that's... Yeah, I think that's where I'd like to be. I think,
and your TED Talk is wonderful, by the way. I just had to get that in there. It's so good. It's brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I feel like, maybe that was the first time being invited to speak at TEDx and going, hang on, like I want to do more of this. I want to, be speaking on a bigger stage and just sharing that message to hopefully impact more people. I feel like if one person hears my message and goes, you know what, she's right. I mean, a lot of people probably go, oh no, she's not. But if one person says she's right, I'm going to try, and embrace that and go for that job promotion, or I'm going to write that book, or I'm going to run that marathon, then I feel happy.
Good. Oh, that's so good. I feel so inspired. Thank you. If people want to come and find out more and follow along and get the trainers on and get their arse moving, like where should they come?
They should go to Instagram, because I feel like that's the place right now, isn't it? So Instagram, Adrienne_LDN for London, or my website is adriennelondon.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you just for being a proper shining light for me as well. I think I did get myself in, especially the dark winter months as well. I was just like, gosh, I'm never going to feel like myself again. And already I've seen a lot of progress. And, with you and Hayley and all the other brilliant women who are experts in this fitness kind of mentality, it just helps you sort of going, come on, just get going. So thank you so much for your time and your energy and heart today. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would love to hear what you thought of the episode and share any takeaways with me. Come and find me across social media at Nicky Raby, or you can visit the podcast page, nickyraby.com/podcast.